Welcome to another episode of Unleashing the Future of Work, live online, a guide podcast. And today I am talking with the amazing Jeremy Goldman for about 20 near 20 years. Jeremy Goldman has been spearheading long-term marketing strategies and developing deep insights for world-class brands like Consumer Reports, Amtrak, Kiehl's, U.S. Marine Corps, Becca, Colgate, Unilever, you name it. He's done it. He developed branding for Mobileye, later sold to Intel for $15 billion. His work has been recognized by everyone from L2 to IC Mad and even Gawker, an international keynote speaker, best-selling author, going social as well as getting to like. Make sure you check out his books and columnist. Jeremy's insights have been featured in broadcast media as well as publications such as Mashable and the Wall Street Journal, among others. He is a brilliant technologist as well as innovator, and really, I think is one of the go-to people to read about on all things tech and what's going on, whether it be future of work or innovation. And today I'm excited to have him on the show because we're going to talk a little bit about leadership, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in tech right now and how does he see COVID-19 shifting human behavior and a few trends that we are now seeing in the technology industry. Without further ado, let me go ahead and bring on Jeremy on the show. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for that great intro. I gotta guarantee at least 25% of that is true, what you just said. So. No, but I appreciate it.
How are you doing today, man? Where are you speak? Well, let's show love to our amazing audience right now. So UTFO community, come out and show love. Where are you tuning from? If you're tuning in from Kenya, Nigeria, the US, Oakland, San Francisco, let me know in the comments and I'll show you some love. So Jeremy, where are you tuning in from, man?
I'm from New York mostly, but now I'm in exile, like a lot of New Yorkers. I'm right outside of Cleveland, Ohio. It's literally the first. I make a lot of Cleveland jokes because my wife's from here, and I say this is literally the first time ever that people have ran to get into Cleveland. Normally it's the other way around. But no, in all seriousness, it's a great town, and it's a very different vibe than New York. I mean, because you've been all over, so you know.
Yeah, it is. So let me ask you, man, because I know COVID-19 has really been affecting, where you're at right now. Let me ask, how long have you been doing the work that you do in tech, and where have you traveled to? Because I know you're working the world and working with some of the top brands in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been all over. It's interesting. The last place I was actually internationally was Estonia. I was in Estonia on February 2nd, and then a month later, it's, COVID-19 hitting New York, going from one case to, tens and hundreds of thousands, which is insane. And, I think I've always had the philosophy of, you do good work and you help people, and it naturally becomes this inbound marketing vehicle where especially for big contracts, people will want to work with people who've done the work, who are very familiar with the latest trends and who are good at predicting where the market's going to be a few months from now.
Yeah. And you are big on future proofing, right? And how organizations can do it, how individuals can do it. Let's talk about that. What does future proofing mean to you? How do you define that, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that I think about it is kind of like you fireproof something, it's to make it resistant to fire. You can never guarantee anything really 100%, but you can add the word proof to it and you can do something. And I think that a lot of people, when you think about, for instance, future-proofing the U.S. economy, one thing that people could have easily done is said, you know what, it's a lot more cost-efficient to just spend a little bit of money here and there and try to anticipate those black swan events rather than try to deal with them after the fact. Be proactive, to have pandemic response, to have tests ready, to have the right infrastructure for all these things that could happen, rather than be reactive afterwards. And a lot of organizations out there, it's not just governments, a lot of organizations don't have a plan in place for something because they say that it's like a 10% likelihood or 1% likelihood of happening. And I mean, you've worked with a lot of organizations that nevertheless, that thing they thought would never happen, it happens, and it costs them a lot of money. So it's all about protecting yourself against that future risk.
Yeah, no, that's so true, man. And I think we're seeing a huge, a wide plethora of examples from companies in retail and finance and really just even consumer companies who have had to adapt their business model and their strategies overnight due to COVID-19.
You see like so much innovation that happens because of that. And I've seen so many people call it out and say that's a great thing. But you know what? I would still prefer that most of those companies had a plan in place already, and then they just deviate and shift from the plan because they had to do so much thinking in a short time frame. And sometimes you wind up with a creative, way to address things, but sometimes you wind up tackling things in the wrong way simply because, you're like, oh, what do I do? And you have to make a decision in that moment and stick to it. So you've seen a lot of companies that have done smart things, and then there are some companies where their logistics, for instance, for shipping are like kind of a mess because they haven't, they didn't do the thought process beforehand.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. So I want to ask our Unleashing the Future of Work community, for those who are tuning in, how do you think COVID-19 has changed the way business operate, right? How do you think it's affecting how businesses future-proof themselves now and in the long term? Chime in. Let me get your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear Jeremy and I would love to hear what you think. So, let me ask you, Jeremy, we are, I believe, we're moving. So one thing I usually tell people is that from 1999 to, let's say 2010, I think that was like the internet era, right? And then from 2010 to 2020, I kind of see that as the mobile era, right? We all kind of like embrace mobile computing and, all of the different advantages it gives us, right? And we built that over the internet. And now I think from 2020 to 2030, I think we're entering a different era, what I would love to call as kind of like the convergence era, right? Where we're going to see a mix of technologies. And really in a digital age, I want to ask you, how do you think organizations can adapt to the digital age, man? Because we're living in it, man.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, the organizations that are winning are the ones that are doing less adaptation because they're already there or they're a lot closer to being there. And then there are some companies where I hear their processes, or I'm consulting with them and I'm like, what are you thinking that's I'm like, that would be a great plan if we were talking about 2012, but this is now a different world. So for instance, having work policies where you don't embrace remote work make no sense. You have to, I've seen people where, they say like, essentially work off of this device, right? And don't have these particular apps installed. So then people are just playing around on their phone and then not being efficient because you don't have work policies that address the consumer of today. So you really have to think like, what's the psychology of the people working for you, don't you? If you want to be a good, forget about anything else. Think about like the productivity of your people and think about your employer branding,
100%. So I want to show love to our amazing community. Patricia, what's up from Vegas? Joaquin, what's good, man, from America? That's broad. Joaquin, let us know what state or country are you in, man? Paul is tuning in from Nigeria. What's good, Paul? Another Niger boy. What's up, man? Deborah is tuning in from Houston, Texas. Hey, Deborah. Dion is tuning in from Hello, DFW. Is that a city, Dion? Let me know, man.
Dallas, Fort Worth.
Javon is tuning in from Dallas, Texas. Janine is tuning in from Florida. Betty from Chicago. Hey, Betty, I hope you're doing well today. And Joaquin is tuning in from Minnesota. And hey, Winifred, who I know is tuning in from either the UK or Niger. Remind me, because I know you're a frequent viewer. So shout out to you, Winifred, for watching another episode. So Jeremy, I love that, and I think what I love about what you're saying is that organizations can truly prepare for shifts like a black swan, right? On even if it's unprecedented, even though if we don't see it coming, there are things that you can put in place to make sure that your organization is more agile. And I think I often tell people it always comes down to how leadership sees their business, right? If you're building a sustainable business, then you're building a business rooted in community. You're building a business rooted in service. And I think one of the good examples, I'm sure you've seen this company, Jeremy, Airbnb, right? Everyone knows Airbnb. They've pivoted their business overnight, but it almost looks like as if they were prepared for this, right? They literally now are focused on like online experiences and, still serving their hosts because they are listening to their hosts, right? I would love to kind of get your examples of some companies that you're looking at right now who you think are really doing a good job staying alive in this digital age.
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly like this moment now, you've got some companies like REI and Starbucks who took leadership, if we're talking like pandemic alone, like they showed leadership in doing some closures before they were mandated to, like they basically, in essence, started the groundswell of people basically saying it's not worth it, to have potential liability to make our customers sick and so on.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they had an impact on the federal government response and on the state response, and, you're so right, by the way, when you have the culture of future-proofing yourself, when you're trying to anticipate what's going to happen, you wind up with this agile culture where you're making decisions in a lot quicker, sharper way, where you're thinking about what's at stake if you were to have a catastrophic event. And, by the way, there are a few, ironically, there are very conservative parts of every organization I've consulted with, such as IT and legal, where this is their job. Their job is to always think what could go wrong that probably won't go wrong, but I don't want to cost the company a few $1 million because I forgot to write that extra line in a contract, or because I forgot to, secure the code that we're shipping to our customers. So you really have to kind of think like almost in this conservative way. And you know what? You might not get that black swan event perfect, but at least you're going to have adopted that kind of mindset that you need to have.
Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. Shout out to REI. If you're a REI fan, let us know in the comments if you love the brand and love what they stand for. But I think those are test case examples of companies who get it, right? Who get it. They understand the context that they're living in, and they're not afraid to pull back, right, and take a stance, and I think that's one thing I've loved about REI, and I'm not even big on going to the retail shop, but I love the purpose behind their mission, right? I love the purpose behind what they do, and that's what we want at the end of the day, right? As consumers, purpose-driven brands living on purpose.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's it's interesting. So there's a bunch of episodes of my podcast, Futureproof, that I've covered corporate social responsibility and, really focused on that. I've had some really smart, thought leaders, and I had the chief giving officer of Tom's on my last episode, and you really see that people want to feel good about all of the purchases that they're making. And I will say, like when you have an event like this, let's just say if the economy has like a major, shift towards the negative for like 2 years, 3 years, I'm hoping that's not the case. It'll be interesting to see if people feel as strongly about purpose-driven brands or not, because if your wallet, if your budget's a little bit tighter, do you care as much about that? Are you willing to adopt those principles that we take? And I hope that, we still want to make smart, budget conscious decisions, but also for brands that we, feel something for. I hope that that's the case.
Yeah. So Joaquin is saying he definitely sees more teams who are probably moving to Slack. Man, that is a great point. And Joaquin, let me know if I'm making sure I'm saying your name right, man. Tim is saying, what up from Pittsburgh? Shout out to Tim who's tuning in from Pittsburgh. Long-time viewer and a great friend of mine. Shout out to Tim for always being a great buddy. Winifred is saying, this is Winifred. I am a Nigerian who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you for actually letting me know, Winifred. I did not know where you are. Shout out to you who are hopefully you're staying home and staying healthy. You're staying home, staying safe and healthy in Charlotte, North Carolina. And shout out to Joaquin. Oh yeah, REI's campaign gear and store is awesome. The clearance section is my favorite. Laugh out loud. So I think he's definitely gonna follow up and go back as soon as they're back in in operations, man. So he's a long time purpose-driven fan, it sounds like. Oh, sweet. So I'm saying his name perfectly. Shout out to you, Joaquin. Thank you for that, man. So Jeremy, I wanna ask you, man, because you really have like a heart for the work that you do, man. What motivated you to really kind of like, get into this industry and do the work that you do?
Yeah, so for me, it was interesting because I've always, had this like future-proof, future-oriented model, but thinking towards marketing, trying to figure out what are the things that are going to be big next year that aren't big this year. Because if you can tap something, before all of your competitors do, then you're often going to have higher return on investment. Now, if you, and I'm sure you've seen this, if you're too far ahead of the market, that's no good either, because like the return is not yet there. And if you're too far behind, then the high return on investment has already been tapped. So I've worked with companies and I've seen and observed companies where they have a too future forward playbook. That's pretty rare. And I've seen companies where their playbook is like so dated that I'm like, no wonder, you're not getting the return that you'd like. So I think just being around the market and being frankly part of a lot of companies that have failed, consulted with companies that have failed and being able to identify this is why they failed. And here's how the next company that I work with, they don't have to go through that failure. I can impart the knowledge of here's what happened when I worked with that company that went belly up or had some issues. And, I'm sure, from the work that you do, I mean, now failure is like sexy the way that it maybe was
it's true.
more than like 20 years ago. But like failure is just learning, anything. I don't care if you win in an organization and you learn from it, great. If you lose and you learn from it, great. Like the learning should be the important thing, because you can fail and not learn anything from it, and that's not too great.
Yeah, no, that's 100%, Jeremy. And I think a lot of people don't realize that sometimes that failure is just ruthless iteration, development, and learning, right? It makes you better in the long term, any experience that you have. So I want to show love to Tim, who says, thanks, man. We are always covering awesome topics on the Unleashing the Future of Work live online podcast. Tim, thank you so much, man. If you have any requests on future people that you think I should be speaking with on the podcast, let me know. Send me a direct message, or future topics, let me know. Shout out to Michelle from London. Thank you so much, Michelle, for tuning in. You are amazing. We appreciate you. So Jeremy, man, like it's this concept of future proofing. I think it's so powerful for me because, with our company guide, we're really in this category of skills training for remote teams and employees, right? And we were in a former category in the past where we pivoted based on the context and kind of like running course with the current of the market, right? Always just looking about how do we future proof ourselves, how do we adapt. And I really kind of love what you talk about future proofing, because one, it's something that I try to embody. And I think similar to you, it's always a matter of me and us always trying to find like what's going on in the market. What are we doing to stay ahead of the curve, but not too far ahead to a point where it's like no one's going to use that, right? No one's interested in that. We're right at level playing field with our customers. What are some practical tips that the business leaders who are tuning in right now, and the aspiring technologists and entrepreneurs, what are some practical tips that they can use and apply to making sure that they're always to future-proof their business?
I think one of the key things is, obviously you've got to be thinking in terms of what direction the market's going and then what skill sets that you need. So, a perfect example is obviously you cannot necessarily anticipate an event like what happened to us, right? We all know that. But what you can do is you can think about what are the skill sets that I need as an individual, for instance, in order to make myself more relevant in the future. I'll give you a specific example. Is I manage a lot of people who are data scientists and who work in the data sciences. And then I noticed, I have a bunch of SQL experience, but SQL, but I don't have that much Python, and I have no R, experience from a programming standpoint. And I figured, that's the kind of thing that I should actually, if I have a little bit more time now, which I kind of do, kind of don't, then I can, just pick up a little bit, upskill myself in that direction. And then another key thing is to notice, where are the investments going for future companies that are going to make it? Generally speaking, the people who make investments in startups, they're relatively smart. So they might get a few things wrong, but the broader market is not wrong. So for instance, if there are a lot of investments in health tech and fintech, I'm not going to bet against those categories, because, and that's why I say, like, really look at the skills that you think you're going to need, and also look at the industries that might be bigger, because you might be somebody who might switch careers, or you might run an organization that needs to pivot slightly, and knowing what the things are that are going to be more valuable in 2021 than they were in 2020, and frankly, like, there are a lot of things now that we can all see from e-commerce data where there is interest in those things, and probably will be over the course of this pandemic, So the people who are pivoting towards some type of, realization of that, and saying, what do I need to do in order to be more ready for whatever's to come? Like, those are the people who are going to win, versus the people who say everything will be back to normal in May.
Yeah, that's so powerful, man. So really being able to forecast the broader market, don't be so narrow, and think about what are the skills that you can use to build businesses in emerging industries versus industries that are probably going down the wayside.
Amen. You just say the same thing I say, but like much more succinctly. So.
No, I love that, man. I love that, man. So shout out to Kimberly, who is tuning in. She says, hello, everyone. You can grow from failures. Preach that, Kimberly. That's 100%. And shout out to Fowl. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Kia Ora from New Zealand. Wow, that is awesome. Kia Ora, is that the city that you're tuning in from, Fowl? Let me know. That's awesome. I hope I can visit one day. So Betty is saying upskilling is important, but reskilling is humbling. Woo, what do you think about that, Jeremy?
That's deep. I mean, if I think about like reskilling, I'm almost thinking about reinvesting in that particular skill set that you have already, which I think is spot on. And what's interesting though is that that saying about like if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound?
Yeah,
I kind of take that to say like you can reskill. But if nobody knows that you have that particular skill, then it doesn't do you that much good. And my second book that I co-authored, Getting to Like, is about personal branding, and largely it was talking about what do you want to be known for, what do you want to stand for. And so, for instance, if you want to double down on one particular aspect of your skill set, and you just reinvest in yourself, also make sure that your LinkedIn is this is like clearly your area, this, but like make sure that everything around your social, says that, Tim is, the man, the Mr. Future of Work. Like, you are very well branded, sir. So, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, this, but like a lot of people, it's like you look at them on one spot and it looks like they're an email marketer, and in another spot they look like an affiliate marketer, and I'm like, what is the thing that like you want to focus on? What are you, just like pick one lane and reinforce it.
I think this is powerful that you're talking about this, right? Like, because you're speaking to the power of pick a niche. And there's always this conversation around building like a T-shaped skill set, and not, and I think a lot of people who are probably even listening right now and tuning into, our live show are saying, I'm scared that if I pick a niche that people are going to value me for the other areas that I might be good at, maybe not great at, but I also want people to recognize. What do you have to say to that person that's currently thinking this, Jeremy?
I think you have to, in some ways, it's a really powerful question, because there are a lot of people where, we almost have like a little bit of fear in us, where we're like, I don't know if I want to really, really focus in that niche, because what if that niche goes away or is less valuable? So you say, I'm going to play conservatively, and you're going to like be like, I'm going to be the person known for 7 different things. But if you're known for 7 different things, you're known for nothing, and people are not going to be able to recommend you, So I frankly even have had that issue, because I was fortunate enough to come up at a time where you could wear a lot of different digital hats, So I had to decide what is the thing that I want to be known for, and at one point it was social media excellence and like what's the future of social media, and now it's really brought into the future of digital marketing and, marketing strategy in general. But at least there's like a specific thing that I've kind of said, this is the thing I want to be known for. This is the thing I'm going to spend my time getting great at. And you have to almost pick something, even if you don't wind up picking the quote unquote right thing to focus on, at least you're going to be known for that thing. And people are going to be able to recommend you because you become memorable to them.
For that category.
Exactly.
I love that. That's so powerful. So Kia ora means hello, greetings in Tio Rio Mari, indigenous language of New Zealand. And yes, great pronunciation. Oh my God, thank you so much, Fal. I'm so happy I'm saying your name right. Shout out to you for giving us some culture this lovely afternoon. I love that. Kia ora. I'm going to remember that, Fal. So I want to show love to Patricia. Yes, that's how I feel. I feel like I'm known for too much. So she definitely is like struggling with this problem where she feels as if she's a generalist, but she doesn't really understand how to like pick her niche. And I think Patricia definitely follow Jeremy's advice, like create your category or support yourself in an existing category and really just brandish it and like drive it home so people start recognizing you for it. And if that's diversity, talent sourcing specialist, run with that as much as possible and just keep on driving it home. So shout out to Jeremy for giving you that great advice, because I think that's really kind of the market we're living in too. Everyone has to position themselves as not a specialist, but as, you have to be able to say that I'm great at this. And yeah, and these are some of the other good things I'm good at, but more importantly, just understand that I'm really great at this and allow me to add value in that way. What do you think, Jeremy?
Well, and right, because a lot of people they have pretty good senses for things. They might not pick the number one thing, but they're not going to pick the number 37 thing. Like, I don't want anybody to be worried about the fact that they're going to double down and say, like, I want to be known as the number one specialist in pitchforks, and then have it turn out that nobody needs pitchforks anymore. I'm probably going to get some hate mail from some farmers. I'm sorry, but I mean, it's the first thing that came to my mind. But the point of it is like, let's say if you double down on, you say like email marketing is going to be the thing that you're known for, personalization in email marketing. And it turns out that email marketing winds up being slightly lower in somebody's marketing stack than it used to be. That's okay. It's still in their marketing stack, and you can do a ton of business by being known as the person where everybody knows exactly who to recommend. I frankly, I have some people, a perfect example is my friend Carly Fink, runs Provoke Insights. And I know her as just being market research and strategy to the core. If you need somebody to do, like serious, scientifically valid market research, and then you need them to maybe do some strategy off of that, that's the number one person I recommend, because it's very clear that she does not, like when we talk, she does not mention the 17 other things she's probably pretty good at, and in doing so, you become somebody that other people can, say, go check out this person, like I just did on this show right now.
Yeah, dude, I love that, Jeremy. You are speaking to the choir, man. Shout out to Betty, who says, ooh, that darn jack of all trades, which can be both a blessing and a curse. Preach, Betty. I agree with you. Janine is saying, agree. What legacy do you want to leave behind? That's what you should be focusing on. Shout out to Janine, who is amazing at process, education, and strategy. Thanks for tuning in, Janine. Edward is saying, jack of all trades, but in this case, jack of all categories, which is not a good thing, I think he's trying to say. Even if your becomes obsolete, it is usually in other industries or even other disciplines. That is a great point. I completely agree with that. And that's something that we actually talk a lot about in the breakintobigtech.com online course that I do with my good buddy John. Make sure to check out breakintobigtech.com. We speak a lot about transferable skills and helping people get into tech. So check out breakintobigtech.com. Rotimi, my boy, is tuning in from London. What's up, Rotimi, man? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in. And shout out to Patricia, who says, oh my goodness, I got you. So she's loving what you're saying, Jeremy, and she really appreciates all of your amazing wisdom. So
you should talk to my wife, by the way.
A little bit here, man. Remote work and the future of work. I live and breathe this, and I'm always studying what's going on in the space. I would love to get your thoughts. What companies do you think are doing remote work really well?
It's interesting because there's one company that I did just start to work with, so I got to actually give them like a little bit of a shout out. But Sales Roads.
Wait, Jeremy, you're cutting off there a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Am I back? Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Hey, I can hear you. Oh, hello. Anybody hear me? I can see Tim.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, if you can hear me now.
Oh, it's me. I think it's me, man. I think it's me. My internet connection is horrible right now.
Oh, man. Everybody's live streaming. It's a problem. Oh, well, we good? No. I'm going to take over. Oh, I'm going to take over as host now, everybody. So I'm going to be host. No. I will hold down the fort, until Tim gets back. But I think one thing that I would just say, which I think is such an important thing for us to always keep in mind. Hey, I just kept on rolling, by the way. Are you good?
I love it. Rolling with the punches.
You're so much better looking, not pixelated. But I gotta just say, when you just said it's not you, it's me, that just sounded like every single breakup I had in high school. Most of the time it was me, actually. So they should have just said that and been honest. But
Jeremy, you are hilarious, man. Okay, I think everything's working out, man. So as I was saying, what are a few companies that you think are doing remote work well? I think you were talking about your wife. You mentioned your wife. I should talk to your wife.
I made a joke about that, but but no. So Sales Roads is a company that I just started working with, for instance. And it's interesting, they had embraced the idea of remote work going back to the middle of last decade. And those are some of the companies that have done a really good job. Are companies like that where they were able to embrace remote working early. So I think that's like one thing that. Another key thing I would say, like live ops, I've heard good things about. I've heard good things about, particularly what you see is like it's not actually the same makeup like of industries. It's not like it's evenly distributed in terms of like which are the companies that do a good job with this. There are a lot of companies that have developers where you're working on code and then you come together, you merge your code, and it doesn't really matter if you're that close to one another. And there's a lot of really good quality coders in a bunch of different places. And you see a greater embrace of remote work at those companies. But that being said, even I know Williams-Sonoma has a lot of remote workers. I've seen Transcom and Aetna and Dell do some particularly good things in terms of developing strong work cultures, even though not everybody's in the office.
Man, so Williams-Sonoma.
Yeah.
And so check out Williams-Sonoma, y'all. If you all want to learn more about organizations who are getting remote work right, check them out, go deep on them and see what you can apply in your role or for your job. So shout out to Patricia, who's having a hilarious time laughing at us because of our technical blimp. Shout out to you, Patricia, for bearing with us. Kimberly can hear us and she's tuning in, and Tim can hear Jeremy and I now as well. So thank you all for bearing with us and our technical difficulties. You're always amazing. So, Jeremy, dude, I just love your background. I want you to dive deep a little bit on your book, because I don't think people really understand how powerful your book is, man. And talk to us. What inspired the book, man? And where do you kind of want to take it? And how do you want people to react to it when they read it? Because I know people in the community are definitely going to check it out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, so my first book was called Going Social. And it briefly, I got to say briefly, because I have to be humble, but briefly became number one bestseller in the social media category in the world. And so I was very fortunate about that. And I wrote it, a few years ago. And part of I was paranoid, because I was like, you're going to read this, and all of the how-to guidance that I put in the book is going to be outdated by the time that people get around to, like even from the time I put the book to bed to the time that it gets published. So how do I deal with that? And the answer is I try to make people think more about the principles of how to execute on social, how to tie it back to the objectives of the company, you know? And at the time that when I wrote it, a lot of people were just kind of like, how do I get a whole lot of likes, you know? And I'm like, well, you could go out of business getting a whole bunch of likes from people who will never interact with you from a business standpoint. And the one thing I'll say about myself is I think that I was okay about saying that when a lot of people were just talking about likes. And that's why I'm like going beyond that, you know, tying it back to your business objectives. There's nothing that you should do in your business where you do it just because your boss comes over and they throw a trade publication down on your desk, you know, back when we were allowed to be 6 feet from one another. And, you know, like they'll throw it down on your desk and they'll be like, hey, our competitor is doing a campaign on TikTok. I need you to do a campaign on TikTok. Like, no, what's the business objective? Are you doing it just to do it? If you're trying to get, you know, some mainstream press awareness, fine. But say that, you know, if you're trying to get sales, say that. If you're trying to get inbound email marketing leads, say that. So articulate your strategy. And I think in doing so, I made a book that was, you know, thankfully I still hear from people, you know, that it's been valuable to them, even more recently, and that to me is like the biggest testament when you've done something and people reach out and they're like, I was able to take this and execute something that I wasn't able to do otherwise. You put something good in the world, and that's a whole lot better than being rich, I think.
Man, that's so powerful, man. So Tim is saying, what are the companies that you believe have flipped the switch on their business offerings and models the best during this time period?
You know, it's interesting. I think that one probably really severely affected, but not often talked about, are all of the different apps that their whole entire main job was to send you to places where you could buy tickets for concerts. You know, there are a lot of free live streams now that are going on, and all of a sudden you had like these apps like Bands in Town, you know, or Songkick, where now instead of sending you to places where you can go like buy tickets, they're just basically, first off, every single database of every single, you know, concert is out of whack, so they have to react to that. And then on top of that, they have to move towards a model of pushing you information about which acts that you follow are going to be doing live streams from home. And that's like a very different model if you think about it. There are some companies where they just said like our whole entire monetization strategy is on hold. You know, I mean, I know keynote speakers that are entirely saying like reinventing their model and putting on virtual events and taking some of the proceeds, but also donating a lot of it, you know? So those are people who they're pivoting, you know, 100% in terms of what they were going to be doing over the next 6 months. If you're looking for like small businesses, a lot of big keynote speakers are doing that as well.
Yeah, and you know, I think with even with our company, Guy, we see like there's this huge opportunity for us to support creators who are corporate trainers or public speakers with virtual training, right? Because that's going to be huge now in the years to come. And you know, you kind of have to understand when to pivot, Tim. And I love Jeremy. What Jeremy is saying is that you just have to be able to read the market. Like they, you know, the businesses that he mentioned saw that live online streaming was really booming, and they're like, you know what? How do we kind of get a piece of the pie, but how do we better serve our customers? And I think, Tim, you know, you just got to always kind of have this mindset of how do you better serve customers, or is there a bigger opportunity here that we can address through our business? So that was a great question, Tim. So Betty's asking, you know, question: do I feel industries will reconsider the value of remote work for employees, companies post COVID-19? Jeremy, what do you think?
First off, that's a great question, because that's actually something that I've spoken about, and I think I'm going to talk to one or two other experts on the future of work. And a little shout out to Patty McCord, who was on a recent Futureproof episode. She's the former chief talent officer of Netflix, and we talked extensively about this. And basically, if you were a company that previously said, oh, we're going to lose like all of our, you know, culture if we work remotely, and we're not going to be able to, you know, do the things we did before, and we're, you know, our ties are going to be more tenuous. and people are going to be tuned out, whatever. Now you have data to see whether or not you were right. And most of the time, like, the answer will be, no, you weren't right. Especially when people have childcare, to take care of their kids again. So I think that there will be a lot of companies that were more resistant to it, that it's going to be hard to say, oh, now that everything's back to normal, we're going to go back to those policies where we didn't have data, when, the Bay Area has an earthquake, you use that data to do a better job in the future. So it would be pretty silly for companies to now have this data where we were forced to work from home and just ignore it completely. Like, there are some companies that might be more resistant than others, but the fact is we had this grand experiment that we didn't want to have. But what are the lessons we can take from that? And some companies will get that 100% right, and some will get it 80% right. But there are going to be very few companies who just like put on blinders and pretend this didn't happen and say, what can they take from this? And frankly, it's going to be a competitive disadvantage. If there's one company that, says, yeah, just no remote work under any circumstances, that's a competitive disadvantage. I don't think people are going to want that. That being said, I know there are a lot of people who want to go into an office as soon as possible to get away from their kids. I have you can see all this gray hair. None of it was there at the start of March. None of it. I'm 17 years old. I just look like this now because of being inside with my kids for this long.
No, it's true, man. I think, to your point, that organization is going to have to realize it is a competitive advantage to offer remote work and flexible work opportunities for your workforce. And I think that's where we're moving towards as a future. Betty, shout out to you for the amazing question. I think Betty is she's an amazing educator, and as well as wife of a veteran who lives in Chi City. So Betty is just really passionate about what she does. So shout out to Betty, who's really great at what she does. So Patricia, will remote job sites get better with authentication? So many fake jobs.
That's a really interesting, and unfortunately, I think that that's something that I don't see a lot of people having the appetite to solve, anytime soon. It's not uncommon where people, will post a thing internally, for instance, because they're trying to build a pipeline and they're not actually trying to hire right now, or a company like a recruiter that's basically creating a job because they want to build out a database. And the problem is it becomes a very difficult thing to enforce, and to, like, how do you solve for that problem? Like, you have a government person who goes to contact a recruiter or a company and, make sure that they hired for that role, because sometimes the financial situation changes and you can just say, oh yeah, we didn't have the quarter that we wanted to, so we didn't hire for that. I mean, I think the key thing is to definitely look at the quality of the ratings for a company on a Glassdoor, or, there are many other really great places to learn about companies. You can certainly work towards only going to companies that you feel that it's a truly vetted opportunity.
I love that. So shout out to Patricia for asking that amazing question. Winifred says, supporting speakers to get on different digital stages is a good pivot. Thank you so much, Winifred. We think it is too. We are making strong, intentional, and smart pivots, always moving with the current of the market. So I appreciate that nod, Winifred. Patricia is following up and saying, I feel they should be transparent about pipelining after COVID. I agree with you, Patricia. Hopefully, companies start to, one, truly invest in diverse talent sourcing after COVID-19, because one, there's an abundance of talent available now. More importantly, I think now more than ever, people are looking for purpose-driven companies that are transparent in how they hire, how they recruit, and what they stand for. So I'm hoping that we're going to see a changing of the tide as well, Patricia. Jeremy, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think what you just said is really true, particularly when you look at if there are more companies, and you don't need every company, but if you have more companies embracing remote work, then my thought on it is that you're going to have places that the cost of living is going to be less. And as a result, if you're opening it up and
like
you're going to say, right, I mean, there are probably even places where it's like I mean, Oakland is like, I know it's one of the most expensive places, especially like given how the Bay Area has exploded, right? But like,
Yeah.
if you have somebody from Oakland versus somebody from Oklahoma City, you know, right? It's like there will be different amounts that you can pay that person. And if you're expanding it, you're going to have a greater supply of candidates, which then might actually mean that on average you hire people for a little bit less, you know? But it also means that it creates more economic opportunities, spreads it around a little bit. So that will be bad for places like my home city in New York, because we need more money to survive there, because, you know, a loaf of bread is like $17, you know?
Yeah.
But like for most places, you know, that have like normal price structures, they'll be able to afford, you know, and like be able to live relatively well. And to me, there might even be like a question, this is down the line, how do you basically price control so that companies don't just like have nexus and operate in New York, but hire a bunch of people, you know, in a cheap part of the country, and then in doing so hurt the New York economy, because the things like that will certainly happen.
Man, that's powerful. And you're thinking about it from the economics standpoint too, which a lot of people aren't really even seeing. What are the economic triggering effects that are going to be caused due to kind of the centralization and migration away from cities?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're trying to figure out like what's going to happen, you just naturally kind of have to say, there's a fork in the road, right?
Yeah.
What are the odds this part of the fork happens? What are the odds that this part of the fork happens? And then you keep on forking it, you know, in order to figure out what are the most likely things to occur, you know, down the line. If this happens, then it leads to that, which will probably make this happen, which will then make this occur, you know? So you just have to like thread things together in order to figure out like what's most likely to occur.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I love that. Shout out to Patricia, who is tuning in, and she's nodding her head to everything that you're saying, Jeremy. So, you know, Jeremy, I want to kind of cap us off and have us talk about one last important question, because I think one of the things that we're noticing right now is the importance of leadership. You've seen people such as Bill Gates, Brian Chesky, Elon Musk, Jeff Weiner, all of these technology, Mark Zuckerberg, all of these technology leaders who are stepping up to kind of like band together around COVID-19. Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg are partnering on a few things to hopefully kind of help us find a vaccine. You know, what are the skills and mindset you think leaders need to develop an adaptive advantage in this era?
You know, I think that in some ways leadership, the good thing is there are generally speaking like a few traits that are typically always valuable in a leader, you know. So for instance, somebody who's willing to take an unpopular stand or a less popular stand and then communicate it to people and show them this is why we need to do what we have to do, you know, so to be able to articulate it. That's something that's not a new skill. It's you know, pretty commonplace. I think though the idea of managing under uncertainty and like a certain steadiness is incredibly important. You know, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen, but if you can be one of those people who maintains a sense of, you know, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we have a strategy to get through it, and we're not going to be like herky-jerky, you know, like changing our strategy all the time, because frankly, to keep switching between the best, second best, and third best strategies is a sure recipe for failure. But if you follow each one of those, and if you just don't deviate from it, then often you can get to a successful spot, you know, through any of those ways. So the biggest thing is, you know, to maintain, you know, your composure, to keep calm, and to develop, you know, one strategy and to articulate it to people.
Man, and be very clear on the vision. One strategy, one vision. One strategy, one vision. Man, you're talking like a product manager, man.
Oh, I like that. It's so funny that you said that, because yeah, literally my father-in-law, you know, yesterday was like, I'm meeting with the CEO and, you know, he needs a VP of product, you know, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I could probably, it's like, I forget who said it, you know, before in the live stream, but like, to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. It's like a blessing and a curse, you know. You can make your impact in a bunch of different ways, but you also sometimes have to just pick a lane.
Yeah, and choose it and drive it home. Shout out to you, Jeremy, for that, man. So Janine is saying, on the grand scheme of it, it sounds like a ripple effect of leveling out cost of living between states. Shout out to you, Janine. I love how you're synthesizing that at a high level. I'm definitely seeing that as well. You know what? If you are loving this episode of Unleashing the Future of Work, a Guide podcast, please share it with your networks, with your teammates, with your coworkers, with your friends, with your families, and tag Jeremy and I on what you're learning on this episode of Unleashing the Future of Work. We'll make sure that we follow up in the comments or in your post and show you some love. So make sure you share this episode. There's a share button right down there near the comments. Share it with your network and tag Jeremy and I so we can follow up with you and show you some love. In addition, I want to announce I'm going to be creating a community for the Unleashing the Future of Work live online podcast. I'm going to be creating a community. And if you're interested in being a part of the community and getting access to exclusive content, let me know. I'm going to be creating that after this episode. You know what, Jeremy? You're an incredibly successful thought leader, author, and more importantly, chief marketing officer in everything that you do, as well as reading digital innovation. Where can our amazing community follow you and your work, man?
Yeah, I'd say probably one of the most valuable places is Futureproof, the podcast that I host. So just Google Futureproof Jeremy Goldman, and you will find it. And I got to say, I have a personal guarantee, which is every single person I have on my show is smarter than me. I have such amazing people to learn from, everything from the future of epidemiology to the future of anticipating black swan events to the future of hiring. So every single episode, I try to get somebody who's a subject matter expert to really go deep in the particular thing that we're talking about. And then we have a little fun along the way. So I would say that's probably the best way to follow me. And then I am a little obsessive about social media. So you can basically find me on every single channel. I should be the number one Jeremy Goldman on each channel. And if I'm number two, then I'm doing my SEO wrong.
I love it, man. Shout out to Jeremy. Please connect with him on LinkedIn, Twitter, and every other social channel. And we need to get you on Guide, man. And so you can be a guide creator, man, and share all of these bite-sized content around what you know. So shout out to Jeremy for being our lovely guest on today's episode of Unleashing the Future of Work, a Guide podcast. With that said, thank you, amazing Unleashing the Future of Work community. If you have any questions for Jeremy or I, please hit us up in our DMs. If you have any thoughts on future episodes or people who you think I should interview next, let me know and I'll try to get them on the show. And more importantly, if you loved today's episode of the Unleashing the Future of Work, a Guide podcast, share it with your network on LinkedIn or text it to your mom or your dad or your teammate at work, and make sure that you let them know that Jeremy and Tim were awesome. Check out this episode. And more importantly, tag us on LinkedIn if you really love this episode. And once again, make sure you check out breakintobigtech.com if you're interested in getting into tech and understanding how do you succeed in tech at scale. With that said, I appreciate you, Unleashing the Future of Work community. Thank you. And Jeremy, do you have any parting words for our amazing community, man?
Oh, just that you are an amazing conversationalist and such a great host, and it's been a true pleasure. So thank you so much.
Oh, man, thank you, Jeremy. It was truly lovely having you on the show, man, and diving deep with you. Please connect with Jeremy on LinkedIn. He's brilliant at what he does. And make sure you go buy his books. His books are available now. Is it in audio form as well, Jeremy?
It's in audio, it's in Kindle, it's in basically everything, So, it's go check it out. You got no excuses, people.
I love it. Shout out to Abel, who's saying, so Abel's going to get the last word on today's episode. You two are amazing. Will this be available offline? Abel, absolutely. It will be available as soon as we get done with the recording. So make sure you watch the replay and let us know what you think. All right, man. Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you, Unleashing the Future. It was truly awesome having you all of you tuning in. Love you all. With that said, peace, love, and see you tomorrow at the same time. Bye.